Edition.
Good morning and welcome to the KDPG Sunday Edition. I'm Paul Martino. In just a few days, baseball fans across America will be marking a major anniversary. 100 years ago this week, the Negro National League was established at a YMCA in Kansas City, Missouri. It was the first African-American professional baseball league. The Pittsburgh area had not one, but two of the most legendary teams in Negro League history, the Pittsburgh Crawfords and the Homestead Grays. And this morning on the KDPG Sunday Edition, two experts on Pittsburgh's place in Negro League history are joining us. Sean Gibson is the executive director of the Josh Gibson Foundation. Gibson, of course, played for the Homestead Grays and the Pittsburgh Crawfords, became one of the greatest sluggers in baseball history. Sean happens to be Josh's great-grandson. And Rob Ruck is a history professor at the University of Pittsburgh, the author of the book RACEBALL, How the Major Leagues Colonized the Black and Latin League. We are also joined by Jerry Micco, senior assistant managing editor of the Post-GAZETTE. And that is our lineup this morning, gentlemen. Gentlemen, welcome to you. Sean, let's start off. What is the significance of this 100-year anniversary?
Well, it's very important, especially because, Josh Gibson played right here with two teams, with the Homestead Grays and the Pittsburgh Crawfords. But for our foundation, I think the main thing for the focus for us is try to make this not only a local thing, but a national thing. And with the centennial being 100 years, that's how we can cover it, not just from a local standpoint, from 1920 to 2020. And so our foundation will be doing several events to commemorate that Negro League history here in Pittsburgh.
Rob, you've written about the Negro Leagues. What significance do they play in history, would you say?
You know, I think that most Americans have the assumption that sport is a level playing field, a meritocracy, where performance matters more than anything else. I think the history of sport takes us down a different path. And we can see that for half a century, baseball in this country was divided by race. But we can also see that Black America created a sporting world of its own during those times. And we can look at what sport meant to that community in creating a sense of a national Black community, a sense of collective self-esteem, and ultimately becoming a proving ground for democracy by showing that African Americans, who most people a century ago were regarded as intellectually inferior and athletically inferior. And I think that Black sport showed otherwise.
And they made it a better game, did they not, when the game was integrated?
I think that the talent that followed Jackie Robinson into the majors from the Negro Leagues and into the Caribbean was the greatest burst of talent the game has ever seen, providing some of its most transcendent figures such as Clemente, Willie Mays, Henry Aaron, Roy Campanella. But in some ways the importance was even more off the field in terms of being a harbinger of integration. Jackie Robinson makes the scene in 1947. Brown versus Board of Education, the unanimous decision overturning Plessy versus Ferguson, integrating public education, 7 years later. And I think that one made the other more possible.
I see you nodding over there, Josh. You want to jump in here?
No, but like Rob said, with Josh, especially with Josh, he played not just in the American and the United States, but also played overseas. And those guys had a great career overseas as well. So when you talk about the history of it, it's not just a local history, as I mentioned, but it's not only the United States, but nationally as well.
Sean, I apologize I called you Josh.
You're not the first one, so that's fine.
One thing you mentioned about it being part of the culture of Black community, I know these teams barnstormed in the off season. They took their game all over the country. How is that going to be shown during this centennial? Because I think now African Americans in baseball, that number's declining. They're going to other sports. How does this maybe get some of that back? Because you're right, that was a great sense of community among the Negro League teams, and just where they went and where they traveled and where they played. They're great players. They're wonderful. These guys were great players, but they're also connected with the community. They want to grow the sport. with young African Americans now. How can they do that better and use this as part maybe a stepping stone for that?
Well, one of the things that we do through the Josh Gibson Foundation, we have the Josh Gibson Baseball Academy, ages 9 through 12. And actually this year we're hosting a Josh Gibson Negro League Youth Classic, ages 9 through 12, where we're bringing in teams from all over the United States that represent their Negro League teams. So all the teams that will come in June 26th through the 28th will all be wearing Negro League uniforms. So that's one way we're going to bring back not only the history, but the game of baseball. You know, we've had a struggle with trying to get kids to play baseball here in Pittsburgh. You know, the Pirates, as we can know, haven't been that great. The Steelers has always seemed to be compatible or comparable to some of the greatest teams, but it's hard for me to really get kids involved in baseball. So we're hoping that this classic that we bring in these young kids from all over the United States will hopefully get the interest of more kids being involved in baseball.
What can we expect at the Heinz History Center? What's going to be at the exhibit?
Yeah, so February 13th is the actual founding date, and which is this Thursday. And myself and Ruck, Charlene Fogie Barnett, Sam Black, as well as Al Oliver from the Pittsburgh Pirates, and Joe Block will be the commentator. We'll be just basically giving about 300 guests the history of the Negro Leagues and the importance of the Negro. I think a lot of people don't understand the importance of the Negro Leagues and the importance that these men played at that time. You know, Josh Gibson played in a time where the color of our skin did not him to play Major League Baseball. But Ruck Foster, who was the founder of the Negro Leagues, created his own league and said, look, if we can't join them, we'll beat them and be better than them. So that's what you'll hear about.
Rob, do young people today, do they not remember what the significance of those leagues were? They're so far removed from the times of segregation?
You know, ironically, I think there's more popular consciousness of the Negro Leagues now than 20 or 40 years ago. I recall being at Ammon Field, where Sean runs the foundation, a number of years ago. This would have been late 1980s, and a Japanese documentary crew was filming old-timers like Reverend Harold Tinker and Fuzzy Walton, Clarence Bruce, about the Negro Leagues. And a couple of young kids asked me, what are these guys doing here? I said, well, they're talking to them about Cool Papa Bell, Josh Gibson. They said, who were they? And I said, well, they played with before Jackie Robinson. And they said, who was Jackie? I think now we've done a good job educating and spreading that sense. And I think the Pirates get a lot of credit, as they were the first major league club to celebrate the Negro Leagues in 1988 and apologize for the discrimination of the league. But I think, frankly, more important than raising the number of African major leaguers, because I don't think that African Americans lack for sporting opportunity today. I think far more important are the efforts that groups like the Gibson Foundation do to use sport to build social capital in the community, get kids to do better in school, to build those bonds, which were the elements of cohesion and neighborhood networks that the Negro Leagues and Sandlot clubs originally came from.
I see a lot of Homestead gray jerseys all over town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Crawfords too, and that's what, and the history of that, and Rob or Sean, you can talk about this. We had, for a relatively small city, two great teams too, where the Crawfords were the Yankees of it, and the Grays won, what, 9 in a row, I think. So how do you make sure that people today, because the Negro Leagues were kind of done in the 40s, 50s, once Jackie Robinson went over, play in the big leagues, how do you get people to kind of say, hey, look, this part of history really helped build the game of baseball into that next level of play, and Pittsburgh's role in it is huge?
Well, I think from the foundation standpoint, it's really the youth. I mean, they're going to be our eyes and our voices for the future. And I think that's what we teach our kids. You know, even with our baseball league, all our team names are after the Negro League teams. All the awards are named after some of the players. Satchel Paige Award, Josh Gibson Award, Cool Papa Bell Award. And also what we do is we give each kid a bio of their team so they can learn the history of their team, because, you know, we do get a lot of recognition because of the name of Josh Gibson. And my fear was to always have a kid get interviewed and not know who Josh Gibson was. So we always made sure that they always had at least a bio of the players and their teams. And that's the way it's going on. That's the way it's going to carry the legacy. And we feel like we're now, through the foundation, we have several kids that came on and are playing baseball now through our foundation. And then also, too, there's some MLB players. Curtis Grant, who's a good friend of mine who just retired, he wore his pants up leg high as to commemorate the Negro League. So there's a few Major League Baseball players who get it. that are African American, but it still needs to be taught. And that's why I think the Centennial will be not only a local thing, but a national thing to reach a lot of different people to understand the importance of the Negro League.
You know, you mentioned that these teams came from the neighborhoods. Between World War I and World War II, there were 300 to 400 independent baseball teams in Western Pennsylvania and about 80 football teams every year. And they meant a lot more to people than the Pirates and the Steelers. And the Steelers, of course, come from that north side group of Irish Catholic working class kids, the Hope Harveys. Well, the Homestead Grays were a bunch of skilled workers at the Homestead Steelworks. The Crawfords were sons of the Great Migration who took their name from the Crawford Bathhouse. But there were hundreds of other teams. And I think the way to hold on to that, remember that one of the greatest strengths of this city is its connection with its past. And if people go into their neighborhoods, whether that's Garfield or Dormont or McKees Rocks or McKees Port, there are the roots of that independent sandlot ball from which the Steelers, the Grays, the Crawfords emerged. And you know, frankly, the best thing about sport is when you're playing it. The next best thing is when the people who are playing it are people you know and care for.
Sean Gibson and Rob Ruck, I loved the discussion this morning. Thank you so much. Very informative. Good luck to you on this event. Once again, these gentlemen taking part in an event to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Negro League Baseball. It's this Thursday, February 13th, at the Heinz History Center, exactly 100 years to the day that the Negro National League was established. It will be an all-star panel, including World Series champ Al Oliver, moderated by Pirates announcer Joe Block. You can find more information at heinzhistorycenter.org/events. Thank you again. More to come on the KDPG Sunday edition, including a proposal that could mean the finish line for Pennsylvania horse racing. We'll be right back.